knowing that being a man is a very important thing to do. Meaning that you are supposed to be a provider, a protector, your voice is very, very important in this world. That's something that's been getting a beating. Forget it. Being a white straight male in America today is probably the worst thing you could be.
Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. You know, sometimes I get the loveliest notes from people that want to come on the podcast, and I certainly received one of those from today's guest. And I love that you told me you spend a lot of time helping men find their inner masculine voice. Boy, to say the least, we need a lot of help in that area. So welcome to the True Man Podcast, Avigail Gimpel. Avigail is raising 6 kids, and she's a special educator and author of the book, HyperHealing, the ultimate ADHD parenting book. Wow, I'm just tired reading all that. That's incredible. Abigail, welcome to the True Man Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's really fun to be here with you. And it was kind of counterintuitive when I sent you that message. I was like, this is a podcast for men, and I'd like to represent men right now. But let's talk about men. Listen, I've got 3 sons. I've got a husband. I'm all in.
Well, there you go. She knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And I like that. You know, I really do love that you reached out to me on a couple fronts. One, I love hearing from women and that want to talk about the importance of masculinity. I mean, that's really important. And 2, I haven't talked about ADHD on my podcast. And let's face it, this is a huge problem that families face. So there's a couple of topics for you. Where would you like to jump in?
Let's talk about something I'm particularly passionate about, which is couples and ADHD, how it affects the dynamic in the relationship. And that's something I've been working with for a while. And I find it particularly not only fascinating, but also very enriching, because I see the couples that come to me are so motivated to make progress. And when we can really pick apart what's going on for each member of the couple, then they really go on to have beautiful relationships. And I specifically, the way I work with them is I'll meet with the couple together once every other week. And then I meet with the husband alone and the wife alone, because they each have their own stories.
Yeah.
And interestingly, what I've come across over and over again was that there's an imbalance of power in the relationship. And we really need to, but interestingly, in the couples that are really struggling, the imbalance of power is that the woman has more power than the man. She has much more influence. She's overpowering the man. And whereas I'm all into powerful women, you know, I'm definitely no pushover here. But when you have that power imbalance, both sides of the couple feel unsafe, unheard, and that really prolongs their misery. So my goal is to really help the man find his masculine voice and bring his strength up, and not be over dominated by his wife, who actually probably doesn't even want to be over dominating. It's just that she's filling the space that he has really abdicated. And that process is really incredible. When the men have that aha moment, then they really, that's when the turnaround happens. I can tell you actually a cool story if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Recently, I've been working with this couple for quite some time. And I could see right away that the husband was quite afraid of his wife, and you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't help but laugh. Yeah,
that's why you're laughing, because you totally know what I'm talking about. She's this delightful, beautiful woman, and she just, she could really put him in his place and shrink him down to size, like in a second. She just could cut him right down. It wasn't good for her. It wasn't good for him.
Right.
No one was flourishing. And, one day she was having a very hard emotional time, and he was not present for her. And she got to a place of such levels of distress that she actually pulled out a knife, and she, she wasn't going to hurt herself or anyone else, but it doesn't matter. She pulled out a knife,
Yeah.
and she really didn't even know what she was going to do with that knife. And instead of him flipping out or yelling or doing what terrified people do, he actually breathed deep and approached her and just gave her a hug and just slowly released the knife from her hands and just walked her into the bedroom and sat her down. And that was their turnaround, because she finally was able to trust him, that he wasn't going to lose his mind about her getting too powerful, overpowering, being scary, being intimidating. And he was able to contain her and able to calm her. And she felt like, finally, there's someone there. My man has arrived. And that was literally years of work and that one instance of turnaround. I don't recommend that anybody pull out a knife. That's not the point of the story, but it was very fascinating.
Well, it's interesting because as I've worked with men, talked with a lot of men, one of the things that comes up quite often is anger, this emotion of anger. And so there's this immediate, like, oh, something's going on. And, the reaction, and I'm not saying somebody would be angry at that point, but the reaction might not be to take that breath. And I talk about this often. If you can give yourself a second or two to just breathe and slow down, you got a better chance of controlling your emotions. And so obviously this guy has done a tremendous amount of work. So talk about, how can somebody get to that stage where they can be in a situation like that and really slow down and take the correct response rather than going crazy and escalating the situation?
So a lot of the work I do with ADHD in couples specifically is I try to help them make a healthy separation, become each one of them their own individual person, and then meet again through a healthy place. Because what I see in adults with ADHD symptoms is that essentially what they're doing is not really talking to each other. They're talking to their own inner voices. They're talking to, she thinks that I didn't do anything for her. She's taking me for granted. He's not respecting me. So we have all these voices in our head. Or we take responsibility for the other person. Let's say one member of the couple is late all the time. So the other one will be angry at the lateness, but will accommodate it all the time and take it on as their problem. And therefore they're just completely enmeshed in each other. Emotionally, they accommodate each other, they enable each other's symptoms. And the first step in really getting them to a place of health is that they each identify what voices it is that they're really talking to. For example, one husband that I've been working with for a while, where he just a constant mantra, she just takes me for granted. I run, I do, I help, I go. I'm this amazing husband, and he's an amazing husband. And she just takes me for granted. She just doesn't appreciate what I do. And that's his mantra, and he's stuck in it. So no matter what she says, he's interpreting that as, she's taking me for granted now, and I'm just being used right now. And so when he could bring that voice in and meet the situation with curiosity and say, well, what's going on for her? Why is she saying that? Instead of assuming she's taking him for granted, then we have a better chance of success. So first we have to work on his voices, her voices, his side, her side, and the truth kind of thing. So first it's his voices and her voices. Next is stop accommodating each other. If she is constantly late, or he's constantly late, that's my case. My husband also totally ADHD. So if one of them is constantly late, don't accommodate. Don't get angry though. If you feel like they're doing it against you, or they're doing it without thinking of you, instead of seeing it as their challenge, that's a her problem. That's a him problem. That's not a me problem. Then you can say, honey, I'm going to head out. You catch up with me. Or you can decide that you're going to be okay with being late. Or you can decide we're going to go out a little bit less often because it's too hard for me and we'll watch a movie at home. But the point is, you're not taking on their problem and you're not allowing it to hurt you. Once you do the voices and the separation, then you could meet in a way where you can be calm when the other person is having their own issue. And that's been the process that we've gone through, and so far so good.
Wow. I'm actually sitting here thinking to myself, so do you exclusively work with couples that have ADHD challenges?
I work with, well, when I work with couples, it's only around the ADHD story, but I work with parents of kids with ADHD. I work with teenagers. So there's all sorts.
Yeah. The reason I asked that question is I was listening to you describe that, and I was like, well, we don't have any ADHD in my house that I'm aware of, but still it sounds, some of the things you're describing, when I listen to other people and talk about their spouse and what's going on, seem actually almost commonplace. So, I mean, it seems like the tactics in order to have proper communication in a marriage or a relationship might be fairly similar here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that people say to me also. I do parenting workshops for parents of kids with ADHD. That's clearly my focus. And a lot of parents will attend and they'll say to me, Abigail, this is something that's how my name is pronounced, by the way.
I'll never get that out.
Don't even try it. But they'll say to me, this is information that's useful for any parent. And when my publisher was working on my book, she said to me, you're marketing this wrong. This is something that every single parent should read. And I said, I really appreciate your input. But the thing is that for any child or any couple, I feel like they might be able to naturally develop the tools, and not all of them, but those strong voices inside are something that everyone with ADHD symptoms has, whereas it's not everybody outside of those of that group. And same thing with parents. Every single child with ADHD symptoms is going to be dealing with the issues I'm talking about in the group, and they need this kind of child raising. They need this kind of formula. The other kids would benefit from it for sure, and everybody's welcome to read it and enjoy. But this set of people absolutely needs it, and really, I don't see them being able to do it a different way. So yeah, I agree with you. We could all use that kind of help.
Well, and let me back up for a second here, and maybe I should have started with this. For people that may not be familiar with, we've all heard of ADHD. It's kind of one of those things, it's out there. But talk a little bit about what it is and how it affects people.
So I see ADHD slightly differently than you probably have bumped into it in the big world. I call it ADHD symptoms. And the reason is because the diagnostic process really just focuses on observable symptoms. And those observable symptoms are hyperactivity, inattentiveness, having trouble starting a task, having trouble completing that task. Now think about that in adult life and also within a marriage. Having trouble follow through. Well, in a relationship, you need a whole lot of follow through. Having trouble with emotional regulation, having trouble with organization. I work with a lot of moms, not even with the husbands are not even attending our meetings, just to get the house in order, just standard, regular routines, getting out of bed in the morning, getting to your job on time, things like that is something that people with ADHD symptoms really struggle with. And they also struggle on the social front. We also have a lot of physiological symptoms that often overlap with ADHD symptoms, like asthma, allergies, autoimmune conditions, headaches, stomach aches, rashes, things like that when we look at them and in the context of ADHD, we realize that really ADHD is a pile of symptoms. And we really have to tease out what's causing those symptoms. And that's why I call it ADHD symptoms, because there's so many different causes. The one we were addressing just now, which is all those voices,
yeah,
the way things are supposed to be and the way people are treating me, that's much more of the emotional element of that. And I see that in every adult with ADHD symptoms, all the messages of their childhood. You're supposed to be successful. You are smart. You are disordered. All of these boxes that they've been shoved into that they don't belong in and don't work for them. I call them their curses. So they are bringing those curses into their adult life and into their married life eventually. And those have to be unpacked. It's like this proverbial suitcase of old voices and supposed to be's and should have beens that they're dragging around with them. And we just blow that suitcase open and get all of that out. But ADHD is a complex, I don't call it disorder. It's a complex set of symptoms that can be resolved. And there's no reason why not to resolve it. The people don't have to be disordered for life, in other words.
Right. Most of the people that you're working with, were these people that were diagnosed at a young age, or did they show up in adulthood and go, something's kind of not right here, but I don't know what it is. And the reason I asked that question is, you talked about, unpacking these things, and it's just so common that the average age of a trauma is going to be 6, 7, 8 years old in children. And a lot of times they don't begin to even remotely unpack that until they become an adult. And I'm just kind of curious if you're finding the same thing with ADHD.
Well, I would say definitely that we're unpacking a lot of trauma. And what is something I see with every single one of my adult clients with ADHD is that they have had a good significant amount of trauma. That's for sure. And they are not managing to cope and deal with it. And that's bleeding over into all areas of life, and they finally can't handle it. You asked me about if these people get diagnosed later on or if they were diagnosed as children. It's really a mixed bag. And I have my own diagnostic category, which is called the ADHD of the third child, which means that I also teach in college, and I have a lot of young parents in my courses. And I'll have these young women come over to me and say, I was rocking it. I was great. I was a great student. I was top of my class. And suddenly I'm just like, life has run me over. I think I have ADHD. And I'll say, how many kids do you have? And it's inevitably 3. So the thing is that when you're diagnosed later on, is it an environmental trigger that like your plate has just gotten way too full and it's flowing over? Or is it suppressed trauma? Or are you missing basic skills? I really work with basic skills sometimes with people where in their childhood it wasn't taught to them. Was that because of neglect or because of some other reason? We don't need to blame the parents for everything. I'm a mom. I don't like to blame parents. But definitely when we dig back, that's really the only way to get to a much healthier place.
Yeah. And what are some of those basic skills that they may have missed?
Oh my goodness, there are so many. Just bedtime routine, for example. Believe it or not, a lot of people just don't know like when you're supposed to kind of slow down and what's the order. How often do you supposed to shower? Like changing linen. Is that a thing we do all the time? Is that a thing we do here and there? Cooking. Starting just making a nice meal. What's a balanced meal? How do you start? Using the stovetop and the oven. Really simple stuff like this. For men, just being able to get enough clothing in their closet so that they don't have anxiety over having clothing. Teaching them basic matching skills, just like the light goes with the dark. Like don't wear a dark blue shirt with your dark blue jeans. Like which light dark. That's a good balance. These are things that sometimes in life, in a maybe communicatively weaker environment, the kids will completely miss. I have met with many clients, not many actually in this case, a few who were always confused about what holiday was coming up, what month are we in, what's going on, like, just utter confusion about those things because it was never nailed down for them when they were growing up. And often that's because of trauma, parents getting divorced or other things going on in their lives that they couldn't even focus on those small little details, like Christmas comes up when it's cold outside. Like they never made those links because of the chaos or abuse that was happening in their lives. And as adults, I have to help them nail that all down.
You just gave a tremendous amount of information. It was like some of it was quite surprising to me. And I did determine that I am not ADHD based on that description.
Excellent.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I wasn't concerned, by the way, but now I'm curious, the True Man podcast is something that, is designed for men to basically be better, men, fathers, husbands, that type of thing. And so my curiosity is if a man was listening to this right now, maybe they're not aware that they, have an ADHD challenge. What should they do if they suspect that this is a challenge for them?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend they do is calm down and not panic because they're not disordered. Very often, especially with boys and men, they have what I call an instant gratification personality. They're the here and now people. They're the ones with the great ideas and a really hard time with follow through. They're the ones that have the inspiration, the inventions. They're the ones who are like, building go-karts when they were younger, and noticing every detail about everything, but then just hating sitting in the classroom because math is just boring and the classroom is boring and it's awful. So they're really struggling because on the one hand, they're probably gifted. And on the other hand, life is so hard for them because you can't get through life on inspiration and excitement alone. You have to,
dang it.
right? Wouldn't it be nice that way?
No,
you have to get into the details and you have to start and complete. And it's really torturous for people like that who know that they have the ideas, know that they're smart, yet they're always failing. And so I would say, first of all, you're healthy. You're a healthy person. Start there. So just be calm. The second thing I would say is, if you have that here and now, fun, exciting personality, you've probably been criticized your entire life. And that's not fair. It's not nice. It's not fair. You don't deserve it. In addition to that, the thing you need to be working on is building healthy habits. And that starts, and men like to okay, so we're just going to get this done. I'm going to just roll up my sleeves and I'm going to get some habits now. It's not like that. It's not like going out and buying a hammer and some nails and knocking some stuff together and now you have a shelf. That's not the way it works. You actually have to slow down and choose one habit at a time. Maybe that habit is every single time you walk in the house, you greet the people there without your phone in your hand and you say hello and you ask a question, any sort of question. And that's your first habit. And you work on that for a month. And you know what? You can get some amazing feedback. And then you're going to want to work on the next habit, a routine, something that you've been missing, something that people have really been wanting from you. Maybe, getting to one place on time today. And every day, one place on time. And slowly but surely, you start creating those habits. And I highly recommend, since in most cases, this amazing gentleman is an instant gratification seeker, you also need to reward yourself for this stuff. And, when you do walk in every day and greet the people of the house with a smile, without the phone, and with a question, give yourself a reward, get a beer you like, go out with a friend, get yourself some chocolate. Usually the chocolate's more of like a female thing, but I don't want to put anyone in boxes here.
I like chocolate.
As long as you don't get Bud Light beer, then you can really enjoy your beer the way you like it.
There you go. I was actually thinking, if you can get people to put down their phones when they walk in the house, you're really on to something, and you're going to be a real success in your life. That's a huge challenge for everybody. But that's such a good observation. And I was thinking of the term, just be present.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of the people that have ADHD really have a hard time being present because they're doing something else.
Well, they also have a very hard time, besides for the presence, which is correct, with addiction. So they're going to be the ones that are drawn more into their phones because you have that instant gratification need. I want it fun and now and interesting. Well, what provides fun now and interesting more than this nasty little thing, So we are
right.
we're always drawn in. And the minute the person is bored, well, you just flip it right open and you got something right in your face that's going to give you a shot of dopamine. And it's destructive. It's very destructive. And a word to all the men out there, that is probably the biggest killer of relationships. Obviously, I'm talking about screen addiction, and then we take it one more notch up to pornography addiction.
Yeah.
That's it. That's gonna kill the relationship, the trust. And I would say if you're gonna spend money on anything, it would be a coach to help you get over those kind of addictions. And I say to all people, anyone who has one of these phones, which is everybody, you've got to put something on it to control this sort of information that comes at you. Because if you have that kind of personality and you're looking for the extreme, you're going to run right into the most awful stuff. And so for adults, for children, parents will say to me, no, I trust my children. I'm just going to give them the phone. I'm going to trust them. I say, really? And let's say your child was an alcoholic. Would you leave them at home for the weekend with the liquor cabinet wide open? Well, that would be child abuse, wouldn't it? So don't set yourself up for failure. And adults, we're setting ourselves up for failure all the time. So
yeah. I had to laugh hearing you say that. Now for anybody who's listening to this is pretty cool. Now, most people I commonly mention, I'm outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Really?
Today.
Atlanta, Georgia.
So today I'm talking with somebody in Israel, which just blows my mind. And it's one of the reasons why I love technology. And I only bring that up because there was a news. I couldn't help but laugh. I was sitting here laughing. The United States Surgeon General issued an advisory that of the potential dangers of social media for children, highlighting its negative impact on mental health and well-being. And I thought to myself when I read it, I'm like, parents should know this already, that this is a problem. We don't need this. I just boggles my mind that people can't wrap their minds around the fact that, you talk about screen time, it leads from one thing to the other. And it's why we've done a couple of 2 or 3 different episodes on men and pornography, because it's addictive and they get sucked in, and you're sucked in before you even realize that it's a problem. And, these people that put this stuff out there, they're piranhas. They want you addicted,
Absolutely.
And, it's one thing when this happens as an adult, but clearly our children are under attack, and it's up to us in the adult world to take action on this.
Absolutely. And I also have a couple of clients, teenage boys, between the ages of 17 and 21. 21 still a teenager. I think we could all acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But maybe up till 30 at this point. But the first thing I do with these teenage boys is try to get their screen time under control. And we would, and they come willingly. No one's forcing them to show up. Their moms are not dragging them to my office. They have to decide they want to be here and bring themselves here in order for anything to actually work. So they're delightful people. And the first thing we do is get their get their phone onto a system. I use Custodio, and it's not because they're paying me to advertise. It's just because it's very easy to use and something that any parent could use. So I put my clients onto my Custodio app, and then we monitor them before we even start shrinking daily hours, because I want them to see how many hours they're on their phone. And these are kids who are supposed to be studying, and they clock in at 11 hours a day on their screen. And I said, and what do you do with the rest of your day? It's like, but you have so much more time, but it's 11 hours with the screen open every single day. And then we slowly work it backward, because these guys have got to, come out of that. But it's completely dominated their lives, and they're depressed, they're inactive, and forget their manliness. They're gone. They don't, they're just these kind of blobs, moving through life with no existence and no identity.
Well, you brought it up, so I got to ask, how do we get our manliness back?
Well, I think we start by knowing that being a man is a very important thing to do. Meaning that you are supposed to be a provider, a protector, your voice is very, very important in this world. That's something that's been getting a beating. Forget it. Being a white straight male in America today is probably the worst thing you could be. And I don't have a problem with someone being a gay male as well. I think that's, or a man of color, that men in general are being battered. That, somehow they became these antagonistic people who are holding women back. And as a woman, I can tell you, no one's holding us back. We literally have every opportunity in the world. And we might have gotten like a little bit ahead of ourselves here with our power. No, and I said before, I'm raising my girls to be, I've got 3 girls and 3 boys, thank God. And I'm raising them each to be very strong within their gender. I want my oldest daughter is studying to be an electrician right now, because that was her passion. She wanted to do something with her hands. She wanted to build. She's the only woman in her course right now, and great for her. But the point is that the man needs to know that he has a vital place that cannot be replaced by a woman. It has to be him. His voice is very important. And that's why I strengthen the men by saying, you are the one who protects your family. You take care of your family. And if you're not the one taking care of your family, someone else is going to step in, and it's going to be your wife. And that's fine. She also has to be protective. But then that imbalance happens, and then you can't relate to each other properly. So you need to be the gentleman. You need to be the one finding out what's going on for everyone in your family, making sure that everybody has their needs met, and being strong about your own needs as well.
Now, I agree with you 100%. And I'm curious. Obviously, you do a lot of this work in your field. Do you have these conversations with other women about how men are showing up, or in some cases not showing up in the world? Is outside of your work, is this a topic of conversation? Because I've talked with other women, and they're actually having these conversations now. Like, where are the real men?
Oh, yeah. Women are really frustrated by this, because we want our men back. We don't want men who are not showing up and not taking care and not being proud dads. We want our husbands being out there and playing with the children and having and not disappearing and not feeling like they don't have any power and they don't count. And it's interesting because in Israel, we have a mandatory draft. So all of my boys are going to go to the army. There's actually a mandatory draft for girls as well, but there's a different program that they can do as well, which is a community service program, which is what my girls have opted for so far. And I prefer that. I really,
Yeah, right.
honestly. But my oldest son just finished his tour of duty as an elite combat soldier,
Wow.
and there, you've got to be a man there. You put on your uniform, you're carrying this enormous gun, you're going into enemy territory, which is terrifying for his mom.
Right.
But you are getting the message all the time. It is your job to protect the homestead. It is your job to make sure that everyone at home can sleep soundly because you're out there and you're keeping everyone safe. That's your job, and do it well, because no one else is going to do it for you. And I do think that definitely takes our boys and turns them into men. And that part of it is a blessing. The fact that I didn't sleep for nearly 3 years because I was
Yeah, right.
he'd have his whatever blown off, or it was cold at night. Believe it or not, I was worried that he was cold at night. And he's like, Mom, stop it, pull it together. I can handle this. But arresting terrorists, that's not fun for me. But it changes a person, and I think for the better.
Well, yeah, I mean, we live we live in a crazy world. We live in a world at war on a number of fronts, both physical and spiritual. So I think that there's a generation, at least here in this country. Yes, we're constantly sending people off to various places around the country that are dangerous, but there's I look at things like World War II and the Vietnam War. My dad went to Vietnam, and I mean these guys saw things that I hope I never see. And some of these guys didn't come back with maybe their emotions completely intact,
Right.
but they definitely were masculine men, a lot of them, and there's a softness that has permeated our culture these
Is that
days.
softness
and,
that's
and, and yeah, and I call it a fast food culture because everyone wants something easy and they want it now, and that's just, life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I feel like, first of all, the fact that so many children, including myself, by the way, are being raised in single mother households. I was raised, my parents divorced when I was 11, and my mother was the male voice, the female voice, and all the other voices. And I know that my brothers definitely, and I have 5 brothers, so it's a big family.
Wow.
So the girls grew up very dominant. And and we were expected to be done. We were expected to have our voices heard, and in this kind of imbalanced household. And the boys were coddled. If the last piece of cake was on the table, a boy got it. It was not going to be a girl. It was going to be one of the boys, because the boys are not as strong as the girls, and they can't hold on long enough, so they must have the cake. But and my brothers, one after the next, had to do a tremendous amount of internal work, and God bless them. They are incredible husbands, really just remarkable. But that was all conscious work. And the boys that are being raised in single parent households are never getting the permission to be masculine, or they are being put in this position where they're supposed to be kind of like being mom's partner at a very young age, which also messes them up very badly. I don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of statistics behind this. The lack of father presence in a lot of homes. It's very destructive. You got young boys don't know how to grow up and be men because they've never been properly trained, for lack of a better term. They've never had anybody to mentor them or role model for them. And it's really the statistics coming out on this are just really horrible. And this is where I think men need to step up and step into, helping some of these kids and young adults figure out how do we be men in this world.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that once we give men permission to be masculine, to take care, to be the providers. And not only do we give them permission, we tell them that's what they must do, that's their responsibility, and they should be proud of that. Hopefully we start turning this ship that's gone way off kilter back in the right direction, because you cannot have a society with this kind of, just like in a marriage, the imbalance doesn't work. And the men just kind of go into the corner and start sucking their thumbs because of their dominant wives.
You said it. Oh my. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. So as we wrap up today, tell everybody, how can they get a hold of you? How can they get a hold of the book? And if they have some ADHD challenges, I mean, this sounds like a fantastic book for them to get their hands on.
Yeah, with pleasure. So you can definitely reach out to me on my website, which is hyperhealing.org. That's the same name as my book. And over there, you can leave me a message, and I'm always happy to respond. We could actually have a quiz on the website, and you can identify if you have ADHD symptoms and what's the root cause of your ADHD symptoms, which is very interesting, because the minute you really identify what the cause of your symptoms are, you can get started on treating it in a calm and methodical way. My book, HyperHealing, both of my books, HyperHealing, it's a series. The second one is called HyperHealing, Show Me the Science, where I go into the science of the diagnosis and the main choice of treatment, which is medication. And I kind of deconstruct that and give you the full story there. So those both are available on Amazon and also directly through my website.
Well, there you go. What a fascinating discussion. Thanks for coming on the True Man podcast. It's great speaking with you.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be invited to the men's party for a few minutes.
Take care.
Bye-bye.